Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased. Today we have Emma Lady. Emma, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Rudy?
I'm I'm very well. I'm
Awesome.
I'm
Thank you
pleased.
for having me.
I'm really pleased. And I know this evening you're going to speak to us about menopause.
Yes, indeed.
So just before we start, Emma, tell us a bit about yourself, your professional background, and your ambitions for what you do.
So, my name is Emma Lady. I am the founder of the Relentless Boss. I'm a Christian, so a faith-based or purpose-led entrepreneur. I am the author of a book called Journey to Wellness. Can I show my book?
Absolutely.
So, this is my book. It's on Amazon.
Excellent.
Journey to Wellness. It shares my testimony on how I overcame an autoimmune disease
Mhm.
called sarcoidosis. I was completely healed by God from this autoimmune disease. And then I went on a journey to really just restore my health in terms of like my nutrition, lifestyle choices, and things like that. I lost 70 pounds as well in the process. So that was major. And I did that in just over a year. And then I went on to build a community online. So I had a community of 10,000 women online and help them reclaim their health as well through lifestyle. So nutrition, exercise, mindset. And yeah, so that is really it in a nutshell. I mean, I'm an award-winning speaker as well. And I just love everything to do with health and wellness. And now I'm in that midlife season. So going through perimenopause, which we're going to talk about here today. I'm a menopause wellness advocate specifically for Black women, African Caribbean women. Um, yeah, so that's really me in a nutshell.
Excellent. And of course, we look forward to you attending the Women's Health event on the 6th of September as one of the speakers for the Faith Research Network.
Yes, I'm super excited. I can't wait.
Great. So let's get started. So tell us, what are the different phases of menopause?
Okay, so there's four phases of menopause. The first phase is called premenopause, and that usually starts from puberty, so from when a woman has her first menstrual cycle. So for some women, that can start as early as 8 years old. For me, it started at 10, and for others, it can start in your teens. Um, Usually that time is when you are most fertile. So your reproductive years, if you like, your most fertile years before you actually hit perimenopause. Um, and then the next phase, of course, is which I've just mentioned, phase two is perimenopause. So perimenopause is when the sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen begin to decline and fluctuate. Um, and that period of time can actually, on average, for between 4 to 8 years on average for white women, but for black women, it can last between 10 to years, perimenopause. We don't actually know the reasons why that actually can happen. There's research going on, but we just need more research so that we can know better why we experience menopause differently. So perimenopause can cause a myriad of symptoms from hot flushes, which is the most common symptom that women associate or people associate with menopause, to psychological symptoms like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, low mood, low libido, even suicidal ideations. For myself personally, I experienced 30 plus symptoms. And there's over 100 symptoms that women can experience during this phase of menopause. It's also known as the menopause transition.
Mhm.
So that's the second phase of menopause, perimenopause. The third phase of menopause is menopause, which is literally for just one day. And it's after you haven't had, a woman hasn't had a menstrual cycle for 12 months. So it's the last day of that 12 months where you haven't had a menstrual cycle. And that is what we call menopause. Once you've gone over that day, you've now entered into post-menopause, which usually in the medical profession, they call post-menopause, um, like it has to be like 12 months or maybe 24 months after that last, the 12 months, consecutive months of not having a menstrual cycle. And that's when you're in postmenopause. And postmenopause is meant to last for the rest of a woman's life. And that's the final phase of menopause. With postmenopause, there are some health risk factors that can develop, like heart disease, osteoporosis, which is a bone disease, and dementia. So these are some of the things that women should be aware of that may happen as a result of menopause.
So you've really touched on there some of the common symptoms of menopause and also some of the impact of the long-term health conditions. Are there any other areas that we should be made aware of in terms of public
Yeah,
understanding?
so for Black women or African Caribbean women, and also South Asian women as well, we can actually start menopause, perimenopause, as early as age 35. I mentioned in perimenopause can last between 10 to 14 years, but also there's some studies that have found that the symptoms can be more severe and last longer, which has already been mentioned. And oftentimes, a lot of the women who are going through those symptoms don't get the medical assistance or intervention that's needed. They may also not be offered hormone replacement therapy, also known as HRT, which is the estradiol patches and progesterone. Which, if you are still having a monthly cycle, you'd be offered the patches and the progesterone together. If you're no longer having a menstrual cycle, you'd be just offered the estradiol patches. But oftentimes, women of color are not offered because the medical profession, in a lot of cases, do not actually understand what is happening with these women in menopause. So overall, all women who are experiencing menopausal symptoms, but also more specifically how it affects African, Caribbean, South Asian women. There's lack of understanding. There's you know limited research into how it affects us. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why women may not get the help that they need. They also, the women may not also know how to articulate what they're actually experiencing as well. So that also could be a factor.
Right, yeah. So some of that I would interpret as also being down to public education and
Absolutely.
and significantly, I think particularly within the African and Caribbean communities, we have a lot of professionals. So one of the purposes behind this initiative is how we get the professional collaboration and we take those health messages back into our own families, communities, and neighborhoods. There's something quite significant that you mentioned, which hopefully you'll be part of, is that it's important for us to carry out our own, what we call reverse research, looking at the root causes, some of the root causes around our own self care and our community anchored support, families, communities, churches, our organizations, the places where we go. All these should be areas of information for our own well-being and our families. So the points that you make about the research are important as well, because we need to know more before people enter medical treatment, while they're in it, and of course when they're out of it. So some of that is very much down to our communities, collaboration between the professionals, the families, and of course the institutions. Another area I'd like you to give us some insight on would be, how can lifestyle factors like exercise, sleep, stress management improve the menopause experience?
Yeah, so the lifestyle factors can have a major impact on how women experience menopause. And, as you rightfully said, going back to the community and us actually having conversations about menopause and having conversations about how we can improve our health, how we can sleep better, sleeping actually can help boost the immune system and in turn help with hormonal health as well. So sleeping sufficient amount of hours a day. Of course, that varies from person to person. Some people can, survive on 6 hours, but generally it's between 6 and 8 hours of sleep. And of course, with menopause symptoms comes night sweats and sleep disturbances. So it is important for women to be more intentional about their sleep hygiene. So that could be just in terms of making sure that you are intentional about getting to bed at a reasonable hour so that you can actually sleep through the night. And of course, perhaps staying off your phone for a period of time so that you can wind down properly. Just simple little things like that can actually make a massive difference. And the other thing is in regards to nutrition. I strongly believe that there's a law of nutrition. And when we break that law of nutrition, we suffer the consequences. Any disease it starts in the gut first. So in terms of, what we're actually eating every single day, we have to be more intentional about that. More whole foods and less processed foods. For women who are going through menopause, the estrogen is fluctuating, the estrogen is declining. So we can be more intentional about including foods that have phytoestrogens, which are basically plant estrogens. Your body recognizes it as estrogen. So foods like flax seeds have those plant estrogens. Increasing those type of foods and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, root vegetables, wild yams. These type of foods help to, really just help with the hormonal imbalance that's going on during menopause. So, I mean, for myself personally, I actually went plant-based. The reason why I went plant-based is because I was eating chicken, red meat, and I just thought, let me just stop eating those foods for a season just to see how my body would respond. And it actually worked out for me. I mean, of course, it's not one size fits all. Everyone is different. Everyone's unique. What might work for me may not work for the next person, but you could try it. So, women can actually just test out certain foods, remove those foods completely from your diet for a season and see how your body responds. A lot of the time, we may eat foods that actually, the body is saying, I don't want you to eat that anymore because it's not no longer serving you. So, for example, I was eating porridge oats, and as soon as I ate the porridge oats, it would trigger brain fog.
Yeah.
So the first time it happened, I ignored it
Mm.
and just thought I'll be fine. The second time, it got my attention. I was like, okay, my body's actually trying to tell me something. Because whenever you have a stomach upset, or your energy's gone, or you've got a headache, some kind of react to some food that you've eaten, your body is trying to tell you, stop eating that particular food and swap it out for something else because it's no longer serving you. And I went years and years and years of eating porridge oats and had no issue until I entered perimenopause because of the major shift that's happening in the body. Certain foods are no longer, or should no longer, be part of a woman's diet. So it's just being more mindful about what we're eating, being more mindful of increasing our fiber intake, especially for women in midlife, because of the hormonal imbalance that's going on. Increasing your fiber can literally be a game changer, just for reducing the symptoms and just for helping your overall health. Because of the risk factors that come with menopause, it's super important that we increase our fiber so that we can decrease those risk factors for metabolic health issues. And if you've already got metabolic health issues and you're going through menopause, looking at your diet first would be the first place to go, I would say, in my opinion, because good nutrition can actually go a long way to help with reducing the symptoms and also helping to balance your hormones better. So, yeah. And then exercise. I'll say this, just do at least 30 minutes of exercise a day. Try and do some strength training, walking. Yeah, strength training and walking, building muscle. If I just say that one thing, build muscle, that's going to help you if you do that. And if you're a menopausal woman, that's going to help.
Thanks for that. And finally, how does menopause impact a woman's brain and psychological health?
Yeah, so before I entered into perimenopause, I had no idea that the major shift that happens in the brain during menopause. A lot of research has gone into looking at the female brain and what actually happens in the brain during menopause. And in the brain, we have estrogen receptors. So when estrogen begins to fluctuate, and when progesterone starts to decline, that has a knock-on effect to estrogen. And when estrogen begins to fluctuate and go down, that has a massive impact on the brain because it means that the receptors in the brain are not being activated properly by estrogen. So, for example, there is a part of the brain called the hypothalamus that controls or regulates body temperature. And when estrogen does not activate that area correctly, that's how we get hot flushes and night sweats. There's two areas in the brain. It's actually in the center of the brain called the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus is the memory center of the brain, and the amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. When those two areas are not correctly activated by estrogen, or estrogen is just not sufficiently getting to those areas, that's how we get all of the myriad of symptoms like forgetfulness, clumsiness, memory lapse, low mood, low libido, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, etc. And then finally, the brainstem, which is at the top of the spinal cord, which regulates our waking and sleeping. When that area is not being activated, of course, that's when we get insomnia. Okay. So there's a major shift happening in the brain during menopause for all women who are going through midlife. That shift is happening. I just think, a lot of people are not aware of this. So a lot of women are not aware. If we have more awareness on what's actually happening in the brain and also in the body, we can then be more informed so that when we do go to our GP, we're able to have that conversation around, solutions for those symptoms.
Absolutely. So we're back to that self-care with a community.
So important.
And willing to collaborate. So thank you very much for that. If people would like to know more, get in contact, I'll invite you to speak. Could you let us know how they would connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as Emma Lady. I'm on Instagram at the Relentless Boss. You can also send me a message via email, info@therelentlessboss.com. And my website is therelentlessboss.com.
Thank you very much. And that was Emma
Thank
Lady
you.
on
Yes.
menopause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ruth.
Take care.